Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I am Manila Chan. That over there in an undisclosed location is Ted Rall. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show, or just TMI for short, TM Info, where we bring you way too much information. If you could only hear the stuff we were talking about before we got on air,
It was
just the
good.
weird things you'll learn. Yeah. Producer Robbie, man. Nature boy. That's
Oh, he
call
is.
him Nature Boy. So I'm gonna kind of barrel through our morning hellos because I think at this point, I know we've got some new followers, so welcome. Thank you, subscribers on YouTube. But again, if you're brand new, we do curse on this show, so keep the volume down if you don't want to get in trouble at work. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Please be sure to like and follow the show so you can be notified when we hit the stream. And good morning, as always, to the people in the chat rooms in both YouTube and our regular coffee crew over in Rumble. Shout out to the Rumblers.
Hello on X too. Don't forget the Xers.
Oh yeah, X. I forgot we got that working now. The Xers. I just think of Generation X.
That's right.
Still Twitter. It's still Twitter.
Is Elon Musk Generation X? He is, right? He's
he's like 55. So
that's peak X for sure.
X. Peak X for sure. So yeah. So okay. With that, let's hit the jaws and jump into the headlines. I've got a sick kid that I got to tend to that's crapping everywhere.
So if you're wondering if you found any crap this morning, it might be Manila's kid.
Yeah, he's got a stomach bug and he's home from kindergarten today because
it's not good.
It's probably not good to go send him to school and just have him barf and
smearing all over.
It's just not good. All you parents, you guys know I'm kind of the least experienced within our team, Ted, because you guys have older kids.
That's true.
So yeah. I'm the least experienced. All right.
That's why in any discussion about child rearing, you should just admit that we're right and do what we say.
Is that how that works? You got to appeal to your friends that have older kids because they've been through it.
Yeah, assuming that their kid is like, not in prison or dead or,
Or like, don't appeal to Joe Biden.
Right. He didn't do a great job.
Yeah. Like,
no.
That hunter.
Yeah, that hunter.
That hunter. Damn kid.
Kid.
Ted, he's still learning. He's only 54.
We're all still learning, but yeah.
All right, with that, let's get into the show.
Okay, first up, the Senate confirmed Pete Hegseth as the nation's defense secretary late Friday after our show in a dramatic tie-breaking vote, swatting back questions about his qualifications or lack thereof to lead the Pentagon amid allegations of heavy drinking and aggressive behavior toward women. Rarely has a cabinet nominee faced such wide-ranging concerns about his experience and behavior as Hegseth, particularly for such a high-profile role. But the Republican-led Senate was determined to confirm him, a former Fox News weekend host and combat vet who vowed to bring a warrior culture to the Pentagon, rounding out Trump's top national security officials. J.D. Vance arrived to break the tie, a 50-50, highly unusual for cabinet nominees and particularly defense secretaries who usually get some bipartisan support. Hegseth himself was at the Capitol with his family. Trump said he didn't care about the dissent from Senator Mitch McConnell, the influential former Republican leader who joined two other Republicans, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Senator Susan Collins of Maine, in voting no, because the important thing is winning, he said. Winning, so much winning. We can hardly stand so much winning. The Senate confirmed Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary on Saturday, thus endangering and imperiling the nation's dogs to a considerable extent. Putting the South Dakota governor in charge of a sprawling agency that is essential to national security and Trump's plans to clamp down on illegal immigration. Republicans kept the Senate going on Saturday to install the latest member of Trump's national security team on a vote of 59-34. So Kristi Noem, I guess, dog killing and bragging about it isn't a deal breaker.
Wait, didn't they scrub that from her book? I thought they said
they did. And then Hegseth, look, here's the thing. He's a pipsqueak. He's 44 years old. I don't care that he's a drunkard
Hey.
pipsqueak or a hoary pipsqueak, but he's a pipsqueak. He's 44 years old, no experience, hasn't
Right.
done this. He's just completely not qualified. I mean, if he were sober and
He is
monogamous
now.
and unqualified, I'd still say the same thing. I mean, they focus on the wrong stuff here.
Yeah. I mean, Ted, when you were reading the description of, his age, his military experience, his drunken wild party behavior, being crude to women. I mean,
His white nationalist tattoos.
well, apart from that part, I'm tangentially about as qualified as him. We're the same age.
Oh yeah.
I'm married to somebody that's an ex military guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Drunkard,
Broadcast.
unwieldy broadcaster, unwieldy behavior when drunk towards women. This is totally me. That's, I mean,
have you been
I could
abusive
be.
toward women when you were drunk?
I'm probably throwing bottles and getting into fistfights. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't drink anymore now, so I
That's
don't drink at
why.
all. So, but I've matured, Ted. Parenthood. I wonder if he's even a parent. I don't
Oh yeah, no,
know.
he has kids. Mm-hmm.
Does he have kids?
Yeah.
Wow, and he hasn't kind of grown out of that. Well, I hope for our
And apparently
country
he still drinks and
him.
there's been like some mixed reports, but from what I can tell, reading between the lines, he still rages.
Oh, there's some little children gathered around his. I think this is his third wife, maybe. There's some children gathered
number two or number three, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's children there, so maybe.
By the way,
a
he
couple
should
of
be
those are his.
disqualified on the grounds of that flag kerchief alone.
That's horrible. That's why I saw that too.
I mean,
this is really bad.
I mean, flag kerchief is the gayest thing I've ever seen. I don't even understand. It's
his tie. His tie is a bunch of mini U.S. flags too.
That one the tie's not as bad, but the flag kerchief
it's all bad.
Is really, really bad. And
it's all bad.
His wife is obviously not dressing him right. And and
questionable. But yeah, his
like,
resume, very weak, Ted. He's a weekend guy. Like, how much? I'm sure he's not doing too much foreign policy talk on the weekends, because I've seen him on the weekend host, right? So
I've seen him too. He was not a smart guy. And I mean,
I think he went
and I'm fair. Republicans
school.
can be smart, conservatives can be smart. He ain't one of them.
Ted, he went to an Ivy after
big fucking
leaving
deal.
the military. He used the GI Bill, and I think he went to like Yale or Harvard or Princeton or something.
He did. I think that's right.
An Ivy League school. He used the GI Bill. Good on him. That's one of the great things I think that came out of military service.
Yep, Princeton. He went to Princeton.
So I don't know.
It's not unimpressive. I mean, but still.
Right. So maybe we're reading him all wrong, Ted, and that was the persona he put out on Fox.
There's lots of twats who go to
maybe.
I'm
just hoping he's not what we think he is. That's all.
He is. And he won't. I mean, he just can't do the job. So I don't know how that's going to play out, whether he'll just end up quitting in 6 months or whether he'll, all the deputy undersecretaries of, whatever will end up running the show, and there won't effectively really be. Look, there hasn't been a president for the last 4 years, so maybe there doesn't need to be a defense secretary.
That's true. Maybe I'll just say this. Maybe this whole dude bro thing is an act, and maybe there's a lot more depth to him than we are giving him credit for. That's all we can hope for, Ted. That's all the world can hope for. Well, otherwise, we're just going to go, raging war on any place that, has LGBT
he's not going to make that
rights
decision
and stuff. So
that's Trump's decision.
He's going to advise Trump and be like, look, Iceland has a huge rainbow flag painted down the center of Reykjavik. We need to bomb them and take Iceland.
I don't know. Based on that handkerchief, I have a feeling that rainbow flag might be a place where Pete's would be more comfortable, if you know what I'm saying.
No, don't say that about the gays, Ted. The gays dress well. Better than this.
Okay,
I would know.
moving along. Good point, though.
from LA.
Very, very, very. I mean, I can't. That's unimpeachable. I can't comment on that. Secretary of State Marco Rubio clashed with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in their first phone call on Friday over the independence of Taiwan. That, according to a State Department spokesperson. During that talk, Wang reaffirmed China's position that the island nation is part of China. It's also America's position, frankly, and reportedly told Rubio, "I hope you will act accordingly," a Chinese phrase usually employed by a superior warning a student or an employee to behave and act responsibly. Rubio has previously called Beijing the top U.S. threat and was twice sanctioned by China in 2020. And Rubio may have more wars of words with Yi in the future. China is reportedly ramping up efforts to encourage the independence movement on the Japanese island of Okinawa that hosts 70% of American bases in the region and is 466 miles away from Taiwan. Chinese state media highlights U.S. military crimes in Okinawa, which seem to happen all the time, by the way. And Chinese social media propaganda claims most Okinawans favor independence. I think also so do the polls. A poll published in May 2022, I don't know what poll this is, showed that only 3% of residents favored full independence, although 48% want autonomy through a federal arrangement with Tokyo. I guess that's what they want. Reports suggest Beijing also tried but failed to establish an underground police station in Okinawa and plans to establish a Ryukyu research center to remind locals of the island's status as a former independent empire until Japan annexed it back in 1609. Beijing has also been conducting a charm offensive, stressing Okinawa's cultural ties to China and strengthening its own claim to the island. I don't know. There's nothing really much to say there. I mean, this has been long-standing policy. The one China policy dates back to Richard Nixon, and Jimmy Carter codified it. And that's basically it. We don't recognize Taiwanese independence. The Chinese kind of reserve the right to come back and take it over anytime they feel like it.
This is a bipartisan thing, Ted. Remember, Nancy Pelosi flew to Taiwan in the face of Donald Trump saying, "Don't do it. Don't do it, Nancy." She still went. And she was like, "F you guys, F the president. I'm going." And because obviously she was trying to not only make Trump look like a fool the first go round,
and weak,
right?
Yeah,
and weak, to kind of flex on him and say, "I'm actually running Washington, not you." I mean, and in many ways at the time that was
wrong. It was wrong. It was
wrong
on her part. Yeah, you don't step on the president's toes.
But
when it comes to foreign policy, it's
showing the bipartisan agreement that they don't believe the one China, like that established supposed policy of the past 45, 50 years. It's just not true, because Trump is doing this now with little Marco, trying to be a blowhard with Wang Yi. And Wang Yi, obviously, he was like trying to retire. Do you remember this, Ted? Like 2 years ago, he tried to be like, "I'm done. I've been doing this for like 50 years. I'm tired." They put somebody else in for like a few months in his spot, and that dude kind of fumbled everything. And they, dragged him, Mr. Yi, back into office when he was like, "I'm so tired of this." And now he's back having to deal with Marco Rubio, who's trying to flex on
honestly, if I were the Chinese, I'd say Marco Rubio is the worst sanction you could impose upon us. Just we have to talk to him and look at him. I can't stand his face. It's like he's a weasel. He's a human weasel.
I can stand his face a lot better than I could like Sullivan or
Jake Sullivan.
Or what's his name, Matt Miller at the State Department. Those faces, they were like nails on a chalkboard for me. Rubio, I can stand his face, but he does have a weaselly quality about him, and I don't think that's good when you're a Secretary of State. Like, same thing with Tony Blinken. Same thing, right? They kind of have this weaselly thing about him. There's no gravitas.
Or rat. I don't know if it's rat or weasel. It might be more rat. I can picture them both wearing like whiskers. with the teeth.
They just don't have the gravitas, I feel like, when they enter a room, the way, say, for example, Sergei Lavrov, right?
Well, Sergei Lavrov is absolutely terrifying. He's also like, his head is
Yeah.
approximately the size of a medicine ball. It's terrifying.
He's a big dude though. So,
Oh
but
well,
like
yeah.
the point is
But I mean,
when
or
Sergei
like, I mean,
Lavrov enters a
honestly,
room,
a John Kerry. I mean, as
right?
Secretary of State, he walks
There's
in the room.
gravitas.
You're like, all right, here comes the Secretary of State. You know,
Right. There's real gravitas to people like that entering a room. And Hillary Clinton, she did that job, but people know who Hillary Clinton is, and I heard she has this. There is a thing about her, is my understanding, is that when she walks in, I don't know if the gravitas is the right word. The way it's not the same as what Sergei
is it the
Lavrov
smell of the
has.
dried blood on her claws?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, I've talked to many people with direct knowledge of having been around her when she enters a room, and there's just like this Cruella thing about her when she walks in. So it's not so much the gravitas of where you respect, say, a
It's
Sergei
fear.
Lavrov. It's kind of, you smell like the sulfur and the evil emanating from her, and you're kind of like,
Right.
oh, Hillary Clinton has entered the room. I don't think little Marco has that, which is why Wang
I've seen
Yi
her speak, and I've been
addressed him that
20
way.
feet away from her, but I haven't interacted with her ever.
Yeah. She just, so I don't know if gravitas is
She
the right
wasn't that
word. I feel like
impressive
you
when
need
I
that.
saw her. I gotta say.
Really? Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not because she's a woman. I don't want people to say, like, oh, Manila's poo-pooing on her own sex or her own gender. It's not anything to do with her sex. It's she has this cruel thing about her. And a lot of military guys have told me this when she was the Secretary of State, when she traveled abroad on these, military campaigns to push for more war, and they had to protect her. They said that she was absolutely just a rude and crude bitch to them, that she talked to Green Berets as if they were her personal, like, bellboys. And these are, like, trained, like, the top tier of our US
Elite.
military soldiers, elite soldiers, and
Yeah.
she's to them like they're bellhops.
I can't say that doesn't sound ridiculously unbelievable, but it sounds credible.
So I wonder if Rubio will be the same way. I don't know. He at least has the diplomatic timber about him, that he has some experience that way, having been a senator for a while. But to talk to wow, I can't talk. I haven't had sleep for 2 days, Ted.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
so to talk to the foreign minister this way, like to Mr. Wang this way, is just, it's very disrespectful and not getting off on the right foot. And especially having been an Asian person my whole life, there is
Wait,
is
a
that cultural
trans
thing.
Asian person?
I am not.
Okay.
Having been an Asian woman my entire life, I will tell you that it goes a lot further. That when you're a younger person, there's a hierarchy of age, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
Rubio's not very old. I don't think he's even 60 yet. I think he's still in his mid 50s, and Foreign Minister Wang is, in his late 70s, if not 80 by now. They expect a little bit more courtesy. It's a cultural thing.
It is a cultural thing.
And I'm very tired of seeing American foreign ministers not understanding cultural differences, and how just a little bit of understanding could go so far. Just go so far in avoiding misunderstandings, miscommunications, and prolonging the shit that we don't need, like this prolonged bad blood over Taiwan, or this economic, this frozen economic war that we've had since Trump's first administration, that Trump and Biden did nothing about. Nothing's changed. It's gotten worse.
True. All right. A Taliban ambassador earlier today warned Marco Rubio against making threats after Rubio said he would place bounties on the rulers of Afghanistan for their continued detention of U.S. nationals. A prisoner swap between the U.S. and Afghanistan last week freed 2 U.S. citizens in exchange for a Taliban figure, Khan Mohammed. The deal to release Ryan Corbett and William McKenty was brokered by Biden's administration before he left office. But two more Americans, George Glesman and Mahmoud Habibi, are still in the custody of the Taliban. The Taliban have not quite told us exactly how many foreigners are still behind bars. Just hearing the Taliban is holding more American hostages than has been reported, Rubio said in a post on X. If this is true, we will have to immediately place a very big bounty on their top leaders, maybe even bigger than the one we had on bin Laden. The Taliban's ambassador to Qatar, Sahil Sahin, said it was the policy of the Afghan government to resolve issues peacefully through dialogue, but he fired a warning shot at Rubio. In the face of pressure and aggression, the jihad of the Afghan nation in recent decades is a lesson that everyone should learn from. In other words, they kicked our ass after 20 years and we lost, which is not untrue.
So Ted, okay, I'm going to take this video back for just a second. If you look here, so there's, for example, this official in the Taliban, Haqqani, still wanted by the U.S. bounty of $10 million. So the same thing could be said for the head chopper regime that's in Syria now. I always forget their acronym because it sounds like a multi-marketing scheme.
HTS.
Like HRT, HRC, no, that's Hillary Rodham Clinton. I forget their acronym, but there was a $10 million or $12 million bounty on that dude as well.
Not
and
anymore.
Yeah, they just recently, like a week or two ago, took off the bounty. Or no, right before, a week or two ago, right before Trump came into office. Just recently, the Biden administration took that bounty off his head. So, we could potentially do the same with the Taliban if they just fall in line and allow deals to be made, like Syria, right after HRT, THS, TRL, whatever they're called.
THX.
DHX, whatever they're called.
DHL.
I don't know.
BVD.
B2B. I don't know what they're. Whatever they're called, the head choppers in Syria, a deal can be made. It's not too late for the Taliban.
Well, I mean, look, the Taliban, I'm sure, would be happy to cut a deal to get their prisoners back and to release these foreigners that they don't really need and that they're paying money and food to keep. So I'm sure that could happen. I just parenthetically have to say, though, this guy that you have up on the screen, Haqqani, and the $10 million, I got to say, if I knew where he was, I would not drop a dime on him. That would be $10 million is not enough money to have all the shit come down on you that would come down on you if you were that rat. That's all I have to say.
$10 million is not enough to remain in hiding the rest of your life and getting security.
If you're lucky and it works.
Right.
Yeah.
This is probably not a smart deal to be made. 10 mil is not quite enough. I feel like again, we'll reference the Larry David, the Curb Your Enthusiasm fatwa episode.
It's so great.
That
was ongoing. They did several.
Yeah, it was an ongoing joke, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, by the way, before we forget, another thing that Trump did over the weekend, we talked about it on Friday because it happened Thursday night to John Bolton, that Trump took away his security detail.
Aww.
And Bolton was losing his shit. We talked about it on the show on Friday.
I know.
The walrus doesn't know what he's going to do because there's a fatwa on him.
But he's also the egg. He's not just the walrus. He's also the Eggman. So he's got that working for him.
So he was screaming about fatwa, just like Larry David, right? A fatwa. But now over the weekend, did you hear Trump took away Mike Pompeo's security?
And by the way, who's going crazy about all this is liberal media, of all things, like the New York Times editorial page, talking about how unconscionable it is that in the face of credible death threats, that these people's security detail is being removed by Trump, and something could happen to him. Okay, so this is for the editorial. I know several people on the editorial board of the New York Times, so this is personal. So if you think anyone would care if someone killed Mike Pompeo or John Bolton, you need to I'm just going to refer you to Luigi Mangione and Brian Thompson. no one would care. This would be like that. Okay. The person would be a hero. No one would care. Well, just no one would care. It'd be like, oh, John Bolton's dead.
Maybe
Oh,
his own
isn't he that
family.
insane warmonger? Yeah, that's him. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That'd be it.
sorry for his grandkids. Like,
yeah, sort of, kind of.
and then
Probably not even.
and
I bet he's a
with
terrible
Pompeo.
grandfather.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. You could. I feel like I just hope that for their own family's sake that they're not the people that we think they are, but they probably are exactly what we think they are. But yeah, I still hold hope. But
Yeah,
like with Pompeo,
they're pricks. They're assholes.
these
Fuck 'em.
guys, Ted, like Bolton, somebody outed like his finances
He's one of
because
the
he was
worst
bitching and
people
whining.
in the world.
Pompeo too, though they're
Yeah.
worth tens of millions of dollars. They go on these speaking
Right. Well, that's
engagements
a
that
good
pay
point,
them
right?
millions.
Buy your
They
own
can afford their
security.
own. Buy your own
Yes.
fucking security.
Yeah.
Why should the U.S. tax dollar be footing your security bill?
Quit sucking on the government teat.
Like you have tens of millions of dollars. You charge per speech like north of $30,000 per speech. Pay for your own security.
Yeah, if you're that
like,
worried. Good
yeah.
point. Good point.
So like,
Excellent.
get out of
Agree.
here with that.
Couldn't
like,
agree
get
more.
out of here. Get done. Get out of here. So anyway, that's
anyway. He has,
this Taliban
and also
thing,
you can use that mustache as a weapon. Anyway,
I think it's a face shield.
the bullets will fall off. Yeah.
Do you think we're going back to Afghanistan, Ted? Do you think that's what?
No.
No, right?
No, we're not. I mean, no. I mean, look, not under this administration. Trump negotiated that we would not be in Afghanistan anymore.
Right.
He knew it had gone on too long. I mean, look, by the way, this is interesting question, right? Do you think Trump will normalize relations with Afghanistan?
Whew. He
could.
He could. I feel.
And by the way, I would say
would.
if I know that the president watches the show every morning. So, Mr. President, when you're, this would be a smart move. Think about all the rare earth metals in eastern Afghanistan. Think about all the gemstones. Think about all the natural resources, natural gas and oil in northern Afghanistan and the Central Asian part of it. I mean, there's a lot, and it's a major trade route between South Asia, Central Asia, and Europe, right? So
business-wise, it'd be really great, but whose business it would not be great for, like right now, the Taliban is really decimating the opioid trade. Right. Really decimating that industry.
As they did last time.
Right. So I know from my own contacts within U.S. Marshal Service, what they've told me about the head-butting relationship between them, marshals, versus the CIA and the struggle over Afghanistan, that the CIA wants the Taliban out of power because then obviously the poppies can come back, the drug trade can happen, and because of the aforementioned, you just said it, Ted, the great trade route. Look at the map on Afghanistan there. The trade route, you can easily push opioids into Russia, all across Asia.
The former Central Asian republics.
Well, right there. Let me pause it right there, actually. The main point for that was that not so much about Asia. They don't really care. Like
Afghanistan used to be 90% of the world's opium supplier. Yeah.
Yes, they care right there. They care about sending it north to weaken Russia. And that was from my sources in.
It's like the new opium war.
Yes. And their whole point of wanting to control Afghanistan is so they can have control of the opiates and push it north into Russia to weaken Russia from the inside, because that's what the CIA do. That's what the CIA do.
It's true. It is true. So and they did it to the black inner cities in America in the 80s.
Right. So the U.S. Marshal Service actually wants to do right by getting rid of, drugs, the drug trade. That's their mission, right?
Right, which are destroying people's lives. Yeah.
The U.S. Marshal Service has that goal, but the CIA has differing goals. We'll just call them differing goals. And this apparently is still ongoing. Some 40 years later, it is still a point of contention between those two services in the U.S. And they butt heads even still, Ted. So as much as you point out, and accurately so, that it was Trump that negotiated the end of the Afghan war and our occupation of the territory. I don't know that he is going to be powerful enough against the deep state to circumvent starting off another point of conflict for the U.S. and drag Trump in.
Well, that remains to be seen, but I think Trump he knows this is coming. Let's put it that way, right? So it's not going to come as a surprise.
I hope so. We'll see.
South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol was indicted yesterday on charges of leading an insurrection by imposing martial law for a few hours back in December, making him the country's first sitting president to ever face criminal charges. I guess that's going around a lot these days. Yoon declared martial law on December 3rd, alleging that the opposition were anti-state North Korean sympathizers. That led to troops storming the National Assembly, sparked nationwide protests. Parliament rejected the martial law measure, however, impeached Yoon on December 14th, had him arrested on January 15th. The president will stand trial alongside his former defense minister and top military officials who were accused of aiding and abetting the alleged power grab. Yoon says the martial law declaration was a strategic warning intended to resolve political tensions. If convicted, Yoon could go to prison for the rest of his life or even be executed, although South Korea hasn't conducted any executions in a long time. Separately, the Constitutional Court is deliberating whether to formally remove Yoon from office or reinstate his powers, with a decision expected by June. Obviously, they're not going to reinstate his powers.
No, I don't think so. But aren't they on their third interim president right now?
They are. Yeah.
So I don't know when their next election. Don't they have to hold I don't know parliamentary rules, and I don't know if they're the same, right, for every country. Are they?
They're not the same. They're not identical everywhere.
Right. So
but there's some similarities.
Are they going to be forced to hold a special election? The South Koreans?
They will have to have a special election. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But they won't or can't do this until June. So Yoon is kind of up in the air until
right now. He's in this sort of foggy, gray zone. He's still technically the president, but they might. Well, but he's been removed. So it's kind of like there's an interim acting president, but that can't go on forever. They're going to have to resolve his status. I mean, look, what's really going on effectively is it's an internal revolution, right? It's this power struggle that is going on at the highest ranks. And basically the powers that be are relying on actual power, constitutional powers and judicial powers, as well as sort of just old-fashioned realpolitik to go to war with each other. It seems pretty clear that Yoon has lost this struggle. And I would imagine the next step will be for him to negotiate some sort of soft landing for himself. Perhaps he'll be allowed to flee into exile with his family, with a gym bag full of cash or something like that. I would imagine. I think in the end, that's how this will all turn out. I don't think they're going to, put him. I just can't believe it.
The problem for South Korea, as we've seen, Ted, is that the previous or the last two temporary presidents that they've had, the fill-ins, are refusing to make any hard decisions because they're like, I'm just the fill-in. I'm. Like when the jet crashed right into the brick wall that was at the end of the runway, they were like, the investigators were like, hey, international investigators were like, hey, you need to allow all of our countries who had nationals on that jet to come in and do X, Y, Z and be part of the investigations. And those temporary interim presidents were like, I can't authorize. I don't know because I'm not really the president. Meanwhile, the president is indicted and was in and out of jail the last couple of weeks. So that's kind of a problem that they're rudderless too, like we had with Joe Biden, just kind of rudderless. So somebody has to be making decisions. I don't know who that is in a South Korean parliamentary framework. So and again, I'm going to pull the whole Asian card. I get why the temporary presidents or the fill-in presidents are saying, I can't make that decision because it's this whole like respect and hierarchy thing within East Asian cultures.
Sure.
And even though this dude is indicted, he's still the de facto party leader, and they don't, and they're elder, so they don't want to step on his toes. So that's puts them in a tough spot. I don't know. Hey guys, don't worry. The U.S. went 4 years without a president. You guys will be fine.
It's a good point. I mean, a country can pretty much run itself.
Yeah,
it's sort of like a Tesla. It can most of the time it can run itself.
Yeah, you just got to make sure it doesn't veer off onto the sidewalk and kill pedestrians.
It might do that sometimes, but mostly it works.
Yeah, mostly it's fine.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. If you're a dog owner, chances are you think your dog watches TV with you. Also, I would say this is true about my cat too. He watches TV with me. If you're a dog, there's never been a better time for you to watch TV. First, technology has improved enough that dogs can actually focus on TV screens now because of high resolution, high def screens flicker less than older, lower res TVs. TV shows are even being made for dogs. Dog TV is a whole genre that seems.
And we got to get in on that.
There's also cat TV, I should say.
We got to get in on this.
Birds and mice and all sorts of stuff like that. But is your pooch actually watching along? Dr. Freya Mowat, veterinary ophthalmologist and professor at the University of Wisconsin at Madison's School of Veterinary Medicine, has looked into this with the occasional help of Tavish, her Nova Scotia duck-tolling retriever, as part of her research into canine eyesight. Mowat and her team designed an improved eye test for dogs that requires a dog to look at a screen in their lab. She conducted a survey of more than 1,200 dog owners around the world to find out what their dogs like to watch on TV. If they found dogs were more likely to watch cats, for example, Mowat's team could put cats on their eye test to attract a dog's gaze. I don't think dogs really care about watching cats. The survey's top findings weren't all that shocking. Most dogs like watching dogs, just like the people who like watching people, I guess Mowat said. Okay, while dogs on screen are in the top spot, they also like watching all animals, but are largely uninterested in watching humans. We ranked 9 out of 17 categories. Dogs have more rods, those are the cells in your retina, that increase night vision than we do, making them highly sensitive to movement. Owners reported that their dogs were more likely to watch action and sci-fi content, genres that tend to feature a lot of stuff going on. 78% of dogs approached the TV when interested. 76% vocalized in response to things they saw. Some dogs even went to look behind the screen or out a nearby window to see if what they were watching was really there. My cat does that. My cat goes behind the TV to see what's going on, to see where are they? They're back there somewhere.
Look, the kitten's trying to chase the soccer ball on that TV right there.
My mom had a friend who owned 2 Chihuahua, and the Chihuahua would respond only to the opening of All in the Family. And they would sing the song with it, like
no.
And they were like, it was amazing.
No way.
No such love for Chico and the Man or the Rockford Files. I don't know why.
Or Chips. Not into Chips. Not into Hawaii Five-0.
Well, I don't think we watched Chips, so that's.
Oh, well, it's a California show. Yeah, that we.
No, I mean, no. I think that Chips was much later than the early 70s when All in the Family was on.
It was All in the Family, I think. Well, at least I remember it being on the TV.
It was in syndication, I bet, by that. I was watching it when it was new. I'm that old.
I remember. Well, Chips was a thing in California for me. But we're looking at all these dogs watching sci-fi. Oh, E.T. Watching E.T. It looks like a what is that? A corgi, maybe? So we've all assumed that our pets are watching TV. So now I guess, I don't know, would you say this is a conclusive study? Or it's
no,
pretty reasonable.
I'd say it's a good study, but no, it's not conclusive. I mean, it's like, first of all, there could be more categories of things that dogs like to watch. You'd have to try different TVs, different dogs.
Yeah, that's true.
Different content. I mean, I think
the flicker rate, the brightness. Yeah. But I think this is an emerging market, Ted, and we should look into it.
By the way, my cat is a conservative. He really prefers Fox News to CNN or MSNBC.
He literally responds to it.
Oh well, like when it's on, he'll come and sit on the sofa and watch it, even if I'm not there. But like,
get out.
CNN, he says he has no interest.
He just saunters away.
Yeah, no, no. Now, if I'm there watching, he will pretty much come there and sit next to me, but he won't watch it unless he's interested. So, I mean, cats and dogs definitely, they can tell the difference between certain kinds of content. There's no question about that.
Well, here now, this lady's study says they like looking at other dogs. They're scoping out other pooches.
Because because they're dogs. Dogs are pack animals. They like each other. I don't think cats really care about cats. Cats care about prey. There's like birds, mice.
Oh, see that dog's
mice really don't make it. They don't really get a lot of time on TV. So
yeah. Well, I think that's a really cute, happy story, and that's why I thought it was interesting because it's science, and so many people have pets, and pets. The pet industry is like something crazy to have like a $10 billion industry or something here in the U.S. Like,
it's massive,
insane. So that's why I joke, but I'm kind of serious. Like the pet TV thing is a genre you and I should look into and see what the animals, what they like to watch. I think maybe if we flicker around the screen a little more, Ted, they might put on the TMI show and just leave it on
we
loop.
Probably should each have like, you get mice, I'll get flightless birds, and we'll have like, can you imagine like chicks? Ooh, cats will go crazy, and then we can start charging.
Baby chicks?
Yeah, like cats will go crazy to see those. That's like food. That's like yummy. Those are like morsels. That's like popcorn for cats.
Oh.
Like the little yellow pee-pee ones.
Oh.
I had a video of some, and Clovis was going crazy. He's like, let me have them. A delicious morsel.
I just always thought this was like a myth. And so when I read this study, I thought, oh, maybe there's some actual science to it. So here we are.
Wait, what did you think was a myth? The cats watch TV, the dogs watch
animals,
TV?
That your pets like to watch TV.
Why? Haven't you ever had one?
Yeah, but I've had bulldogs, and they just loaf around and don't care what's on TV, and they sit and fart and eat. Yeah, Harley didn't care. Harley's just chilling wherever, just in his corner on his dog bed.
All right, so maybe it's a breed issue.
Because English bulldog, maybe not all, because there's English bulldogs that like to surf, right? Harley was not one of those, or skateboard. As much as I tried to make him be, he was not one of those dogs, and he just didn't care. He never looked at the TV. He didn't care. And Roxy before him, and another English bulldog, they never watched TV. They just didn't care. They just want to loaf around and be pet and fed, and that like go for a short walk outside. That was it.
Okay, then we should jaw it out and move on.
All right, that's it for your pets. So I thought that was interesting. You don't think that's interesting?
No, it is interesting. I can't say it's surprising because my cat is such an avid television watcher, and I'm going to confirm that point about the quality of the TV. I mean, I've had cats most of my life, and they, like in the old days, cats did not have as much interest in like your Sony Trinitron or your old black and white or whatever. They just didn't care.
Oh.
So I think it's the high res like gives them the ability to see more of what's going on. Like a cat's vision isn't actually very good.
Really?
People think they look like they see everything with those big round. No, but they're what they see is they track motion really well, and they hear and they smell insanely. So so like my cat can distinguish whether the like outside the apartment door, if it's my kid walking out in the hall, or if it's a neighbor. Like if it's my kid, he runs to the door meowing. But if it's anyone else, he doesn't like. He knows. Oh,
I always assumed that cats and dogs had great vision. Maybe
I don't know. I can't speak to dogs' vision. I think dogs probably see better than cats. But
Yeah, like
cats kind of don't
especially
need
hunting dogs.
cats don't really need to see that well, but they do track movement. That's why, like, you ever
Oh,
notice
they can chase a rat.
when cats play or when they're chasing a rat, right? Like, if the rat like is still, the cat might like lose track of it.
No kidding. I didn't know. I never knew that because I've not been a cat. I'm a dog person, so I've always had dogs. I've had other random animals, cats, yeah, but not really like in the house with me. So that's new information for me. I just thought the dog thing was a myth because none of the dogs I've ever had watch
Mhm.
TV. And then as a kid, I'm playing with him whatever my dog was at the time, I'm playing with the dog and I wasn't watching TV. We didn't do that in the 80s.
All right, well, there you go.
There you go. Interesting. All right, Jaws.
And now we go into today's show's main topic, Trump's foreign policy. Trump's presidency is only a week old, and all his foreign policy is all over the place. Or is it? Over the weekend, America's new president waged and won his short-lived trade war with Colombia, a staunch U.S. ally in Latin America, over deportation flights. That was a really strange thing. Basically, the U.S. sent deported Colombian nationals on military transport jets to Colombia. The president of Colombia, who's a left-winger, thought that it was undignified to sending them as cargo rather than putting them on regular commercial planes, and refused to let them land. Trump got pissed and threatened to impose a 25 to 50% trade tariff on all Colombian goods. Then the president of Colombia said, "Fuck you, I'm doing the same thing back to you." And then Trump came back and yelled more. And then finally, the Colombian guy said, okay, we'll work it out. And he claims
No,
that
he tweeted more.
Yeah, so apparently the trade war is over and the deportation flights have resumed. We have mixed messages in Gaza. Trump is urging countries like Egypt and Jordan to take in the displaced Gazans, which would, of course, to enable the Israelis who have been ethnically cleansing or attempting to Gaza, while simultaneously ordering Israel to extend its ceasefire with Hamas by at least 30 extra days without asking Israel if they're willing to do it. He threatened Russia, even as he said that he wants to denuclearize, and actually he wants to negotiate with Putin over Ukraine. And who knows what he's on about when it comes to China, which has now reversed its previous refusal to accept its own undocumented migrants back from the US after the scrap with Colombia, which, by the way, I didn't know that there were any undocumented Chinese nationals in the United States, but I guess there were. So we're going to try to make sense of this foreign policy. Is it an incoherent mess, or is there a method to Trump's madness? What do you think?
I really don't know right now. I mean, I thought his first go around as POTUS was a flaming hot mess. And it was incoherent and kind of all over the place, but at the same time, I think that is also part of Trump's MO. And I'm going to defer again to having read The Art of the Deal. No matter what the guy says that he was the ghostwriter, I think Trump had a lot of say in that book and probably really did cooperate with the so-called ghostwriter more than the ghostwriter is willing to admit. Because you saw it in Trump's first administration. He says the whole point of being erratic is a strategy. Whether or not you and I agree with it, whether or not I like it, it is actually a power play on Trump's part. I personally, I understand that. I understand that technique, I guess, if we want to call it that. I don't necessarily agree with it. Oh, you're on mute, Ted.
It's the madman theory that Richard Nixon had. Make everyone think that you're crazy and then they're scared of you.
So yeah, maybe that's what that is. Like he's crazy like a fox. I don't know. I don't agree with that sort of foreign policy, and nor do I agree with, like, for example, we've heard Vladimir Putin say outright that they would have actually preferred a Hillary Clinton win because she's predictable, right? Like they know which way she was going to turn before she turned, right? Because she's obviously been in office for a very long time, and establishment figureheads like her are, maybe they're not great for the world, but in a diplomatic sense, if you're diplomat to diplomat, she was more predictable had she, been the person that won presidency in 2016, right? So with Trump doing this, I don't know. I mean, he's a lame duck now, so I feel like maybe there's a method to this madness, and right now putting a freeze on basically all foreign aid except to Israel and Egypt is, I think it's like a 90-day freeze. I think that part is actually good. Like I said, I can pick good and bad from all the weird things he's done in the past week, but this foreign aid freeze, I personally think, is a good thing to give the administration a time, a chunk of time to reassess as much as they can the ROI that they are getting from this constant just bleeding of money that we're doing to every country around the world. We're obviously trying to buy friends, right? We're trying to buy friends and influence
or at least
people,
rent
hearts
them.
and minds. Right. You rent them. And do we really need to keep renting those friends, right? Like it just, like we're looking at Ukraine right there. I think he's signaled very clearly that he wants it to come to an end. But then he can't, for show purposes, he can't seem only like he's going to apply pressure on Zelensky. He needs to talk tough to Putin, right? And publicly on tweet. And I think Putin's government knows better, that they're like, yeah, here he goes, we're like running his big mouth on Twitter again, and they'll just roll their eyes and wait for actual, diplomatic ties to be reestablished. Because as we know, at least for 2 years, there was zero between the U.S. and Russia, for example, right? Zero. Blinken did not talk to Lavrov for 2 years. Neither was there communication between Biden and Putin, right? So I think once the pause on all foreign aid gets assessed, Trump and his people are going to be able to figure out what's our ROI and is it worth it? And I think Ukraine is not worth it, and that he's going to say, what are we actually getting back from this Ukraine thing? Let's fire up the bat phone to Putin, and let's figure that part out. So I think it's good that there's a pause. Everything else, I don't know. Everything is just like all in different directions. Like, no idea. I'm focused more on that one, and I'm hoping the pause to Ukraine will also stop the bleed of our U.S. tax dollars, Ted. So, that's a big one.
Well, I think there is a method to the madness here. And I think what this reminds me, I think what Trump's strategy is to basically knock heads on both sides of an agreement that he wants to get, in order to get them both to soften up and then have him broker the deal and get them close. So, for example, if you're talking about Ukraine, behind the scenes, and in public, he's already let Zelensky know, like, the good times are coming to an end. There's not going to be an unlimited surge of weapons and support coming for all time, that he's going to have to take make some territorial concessions, agree not to join NATO, the things that were important to Russia. And at the same time, for domestic consumption, he's yelling at Putin and I'm sure he's even telling Putin privately, listen, I'm going to have to beat you up on Truth Social a little bit. Just don't worry about it. It'll be cool. And I think that's what this is all about. It reminds me a lot of, the way real estate brokers will make a buyer and a seller come together. They'll tell the buyer that, like, this is the cheapest thing they're ever going to get in the world. They're so lucky to get it. They'll tell the seller that what they're selling is a worthless piece of shit, and they're lucky to have a buyer. And I had this experience. I sold an apartment in New York years ago, and it was on the top floor overlooking a park. And when And so I remember thinking, wow, this is a really great apartment because no one's walking above you, right? You never hear anything like that. You have a nice open view, blah, 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 blah. So the broker goes, no. That's like a negative. I'm like, being on the top floor is a negative? Yeah, they have to take the elevator all the way up there as opposed to just walking in on the first floor. Like, plus there could be like birds could hit the windows. She was making all sorts of shit up. And I was like, I don't believe you at all, right? And then, because I had read that like every floor you go higher was worth an extra $10,000 or something.
Oh.
And then it's like but I was like, but she kept pouring on like what a worthless piece of shit the apartment was. And at the close, I met the buyer, and the buyer said, "Oh, she kept telling us how important it was that it was on the top floor and that there's no one walking above you, and that's what makes it so desirable." And so I think that's kind of, Trump comes out of real estate. I mean, I know this is I'm radically simplifying, but I also don't think I'm wrong. I think this is what this is a pro. He would love a deal on the Middle East that gets him considered for a Nobel Peace Prize. He would love to solve the Ukraine conflict. He wants to be known as a peacemaker, like the guy who basically ended the wars, had everyone
brought world peace, like had lots of buildings come out of the rubble, a good percentage of them with his name on them, and just that's what this is all. That's what he's about. I think this foreign policy. I mean, even with Israel, he has pressured Israel more than Biden did, right? The conventional wisdom was, if you thought Biden sucked on Israel, just you wait for Trump. But Biden would never have done what Trump just did a few days ago. Just notified Netanyahu, so that ceasefire you've agreed to, it's going to be extended by 30 days. Don't bother to reply. We're not having a conversation here. That's just what's happening. That's really that's just what we're doing.
That's it. That's what's for dinner. You're eating it. You're gonna and with a smile if you'd like. Without a smile, either way, you're eating it. So, I mean, I think you would just not. We haven't seen a president talk to Israel like ever that. So not for a long time.
That's true.
So
I think that's a pretty good assessment.
I think that's what's going on here. I think he wants the deal, and I think he's just trying to soften up both sides to get it done. And with the Colombia thing, that's about he viewed that as an opportunity. This lefty is going to get sassy with me and give me a hard time. All right, so I'll just beat him up a little bit so that anybody else who tries fucking with me, that's the name of today's segment,
him as an example. Is that what that was?
Fuck with me and find out, right? And fuck around and find out. It's he set that example. China paid attention to it.
3 hours, Ted. It was not even kidding with Colombia. It was like a 3-hour Twitter spat, and Colombia backed off just instantly. And when I first heard about this, I had taken note going, does this even matter? How much trade could there possibly be between the U.S. and Colombia?
More than you'd think.
And I looked into it. That was my first note to self, right? And then I looked and I went, holy shit. The U.S. has $65 billion worth of trade between us and Colombia. $65 billion? That was shocking to me. So no wonder President Petro backed off within 90 minutes. So that's a lot of money for Colombia. I thought, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're gonna pull Shakira back home and say you can't have her anymore. She's coming home. That's their greatest export. No, so. It turns out there's a lot of money involved.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of money. The thing is, this president is determined to establish his reputation as a hard ass and a badass very, very quickly. And, this is kind of, again, another analogy, personal story. So I was bullied relentlessly in junior high school by this one kid. And in fact, I wrote a book about it called My War with Brian. It's a graphic novel. So between the summer between junior high and high school, I went from being the shortest kid in my class to the tallest kid in my class. So the first day of school, we'll call him Bob because his name was Bob. He walks up to me at the lockers and punches me in the stomach like it's old times. And I'm like, no. It's not old times. This is like, in this analogy, this is like the first day of this week in Trump's second term. I'm not like in the first term where the deep state beat me up and all that. Like, no, it's all different. So, I basically held his head between the locker door and the side of the locker, and I closed the door on his head over and over and over again as hard as I could. And ultimately, he was hospitalized and had a dent in his skull. And I heard people talk about me in the hallway, and they were like, "Rall's fucking crazy. He sent Bob to the fucking hospital," and it's like for a week. And my only regret was that he didn't die. I wish he had. He'd beaten me up, thrown me down the stairs. He broke my nose.
Oh, so he was like a serious bully, not.
Oh yeah, and it was relentless
like
for 3 years, every day for 3 years. Okay, back 70s style bullying, back when they really did bullying the right way,
real bullying, and not like tweeting or putting on Instagram that like Jennifer has a fat ass,
black eyes, bloody lips, blood, the whole nine
real
yards.
bullying.
Yeah. So I'm like, boxed my ear. So the point is like, I was living in terror of this guy. So it all came out, So I think and I remember when I heard that, I was thinking, that's good. They think I'm crazy. They'll leave me alone. Guess how many times I was ever bullied in high school? 0. So that's exactly what Trump is trying for here. This is posturing. This is like, it's about creating this reputation, like, don't fuck with me or I'm coming after you. But if you deal with me, we can get something done.
I can see, I think I agree with your assessment. That's pretty good, because if we look back to his first administration, I think that was pure chaos and pandemonium. Because I think he was inexperienced, and he had crazy war hawks in his ear like Bolton and Pompeo, right? And this time he's filled the ranks with Trump loyalists. And even if they're not loyalists, like such as JD Vance, in the first go around, he wasn't into Donald Trump, right? But he's since come around. Marco Rubio, same thing, not into the first President Trump, but he's come around. So I feel like now that he's filled the ranks with a bunch of yes men, I think there is going to be a difference this time. I just haven't, until you pointed this out right now, I couldn't connect the dots. But when you look at how he is a narcissist, right? Like, I think we all know that. And he does want this legacy thing to be like the first ever, biggest peace president ever. And being the lame duck, because as the saying goes, when you get to your lame duck stage as a politician, all you care about at that point is your legacy, right?
That's right. Or you should.
Or theoretically you should. And then you care about your fucking presidential library, right? Like, who's going to donate to your library and who's going to build it and where is it going to be? So I think having you kind of walk through your thought process, I think that makes a lot of sense. And while it seems chaotic right now, it's 1 weekend, I think you're right that he's trying to establish the fuck around and find out persona, the bull in the china shop persona, that he will gore you, is what he's saying. He's gonna gore anybody.
It's what he wants you to think. Yeah.
Right. But I don't think he's actually going to do that. I think he's just thrashing around the Tiffany's, in New York City right now, thrashing around. But then as soon as, let's say, Putin walks in the room or President Xi walks in the room, the bull will be calm. I think.
Yeah. Well, I think with someone like Xi or Putin, they're temperamentally extremely calm. Right.
Yes.
And so, and really, I think, someone like that is, easy for Trump to deal with. That's why I think Trump respects them. And he has said many times that he respects them. I mean, I would too if I were in his shoes. I would be like, okay, well, these are guys who they don't really have a lot of time for nonsense. They just they have goals that they'd like to accomplish. Ideally, it can be simple and quick. But if it can't be simple and quick, it'll be complicated and long. Ukraine I think Putin was frustrated to no end of the earth with like years from 2014 to 2022 for 8 years trying to get the Ukrainians to see reason. No, it's like, well, we don't want to be a vassal state to Russia. Sorry, it's where you live. You're going to be a vassal state to Russia. Move your country somewhere else then, because it's like you're on the border with Russia. It's how it is. I mean, it's like you can't have it. And they're like, and the Ukrainians are living in a fantasy
Canada
world.
To us.
Yes.
Yes. You're subservient to us.
Yes.
Sorry, Justin. You're gonna be subservient to us. Sorry.
Look, and I think, and that's the thing, right? Like I always say this, if the president of Russia was a completely different person under a completely different economic system, a different political system, coming from, Putin's a conservative. Let's say he was a far lefty. It doesn't matter if it's under the Tsar or under communism, under Lenin, if it's under Ted Rall, if it's under Clovis, if it's under Manila Chan, it doesn't matter. Any president of Russia would do the same exact fucking thing because they have to. Just like any president of the United States would not tolerate Canada becoming unfriendly and not being a vassal state. You couldn't, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or whatever. You can't let that go. Otherwise, your country's fucked. So, I mean, that's why it really frustrated me that so many Americans just couldn't see that, put themselves in like in like Putin's shoes. This isn't about
the shoe on the other foot thing.
You could hate Putin and say he's a horrible authoritarian, which may or may not be true. It has nothing to do with this conversation because anyone would do the same thing.
Right. It's the whole America has lost its ability to see the other person's perspective, having the shoe on the other foot. And that's why, like I said earlier in the headlines when we were talking about Marco Rubio, is that the way he talked to Foreign Minister Wang appears disrespectful, and respect is a big thing in the Asian culture, especially with your elders. Like it's paramount, in fact, paramount. Like my grandmother or grandfather.
It's also not just about insult. It's not really necessarily just like that the old guy feels insulted. It's also like the fact that Rubio didn't show respect to the old guy. Tells him Rubio's kind of dumb. He doesn't really know what he's supposed to do. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily about the personal insult. It's more like, you don't really know how, you know what I mean? Like he assesses
that's why Wang basically said, thank you, Marco, but sit down. And because in Asian culture, knowing a little bit about the shoe being on the other foot, or even trying to understand the other people's culture, whether it be Russia or China or Japan or Mexico, having a little bit of cultural understanding, not saying you have to like it or agree with their culture, just understanding their culture and how they do what they do, why they do. It would go so far in the diplomatic world, but I feel like the statesmen like that, we lost them in the back half of the 20th century. There are people, I mean, the Vietnam War, the pretext of going in there was the whole, like, as it turns out, it was basically like a China containment policy even back then, right? But the whole idea was the Gulf of Tonkin, the whole this whole fake thing, and none of the people that were actually advising the president even back then had any expertise on Asia. And they didn't even understand that the Chinese and the Vietnamese didn't like each other. Like, there's thousands of years of bad blood between the Vietnamese and the Chinese. And here they're going to become communists like the Chinese, and the Chinese are going to take over Vietnam. Actually, no, the Vietnamese would have same thing, would have fought tooth and fucking nail and died before the Chinese could take over their land, right? But nobody in the US State Department seemed to fucking know that. And nobody seemed to understand culture or history of Asia to better advise the US president.
Well, they could have just listened to Ho Chi Minh told them what this was about. He was like, this is about nationalism. He sat down with John Foster Dulles and said, like, this, we don't have any beef with you, and we're not trying to take over the world and turn it all communist. Like, we just want to do our thing our way. We would love to have you as a friend, but if you don't want to be a friend, then we'll be enemies.
Right, just leave us alone. But then they pitched over here in Washington the idea of communism spreading, Chinese style, the Chinamen are coming, Gulf of Tonkin shit, and here we are.
Keeps the military industrial complex going. It's all bullshit.
But do you feel like these people actually know, Ted? Like these State Department people, do you feel like they're actual, like in this 21st century where you have people like a Jake Sullivan who are exalted figureheads in the State Department? Do you really think they even have cultural knowledge of these different countries that they're dealing with?
Well, it's entirely possible, but it's one of those things that if it's true, there's no evidence to support it. I don't. There's no sense of that at all. And it's really a little understanding goes a long way. I just don't understand at all why we are the way we. I do know why we are the way we are. It's because we feel like we don't have to care.
I get that part. I get that part. I feel like every country should have like a cultural attaché given to Marco Rubio so he can understand, like, hey, or at least a region, like, hey, French people are kind of like this, like have a French person, explain to Rubio culturally they're like this because of this, and they will fucking pitch a fit and riot.
You have to be able to listen, right? I mean, just today there was a piece in today's New York Times where they interviewed on the editorial page. They interviewed right-wingers, supporters of right-wing parties in Europe, and like places like Germany, like people who support AfD, and Austria and France who support Marine Le Pen. And they all, it's amazing, right? They're all speaking different languages. They're all in different countries. They all say the same exact thing. They're like, I don't have anything against immigration. I'm not racist. I think there should be some immigration, but we should be looking out for our people in our country first. And then if we have any leftover resources, we can help foreigners. They all say the same thing. And I'm not going to get into whether that's a correct point of view or not. But the point is they all speak as one. They're super clear. And people on the left, and I don't really mean the real left, because the real left, we do understand it. But the liberals, the Democrats, people like that, they just are like, but what's with the Trumpies? Well, they're all like, why are they like that? I'm like, they're telling you why they're like that. But why? Why are they like that? They're telling you. But I don't understand. They won't say anything.
They told you.
They told you. You just have to open your fucking ears.
That I'm gonna ambush producer Robbie because I think he looks like he has something to say about this.
Yeah, all right. So then we'll let Robbie have the last word. All right.
Yeah. All right, producer Robbie, I'm popping you on.
What? Robbie gets the last word? What? Never.
You get the last word before we say bye.
No, I don't understand. As the right winger on the show, I really don't understand why the, I don't want to say liberals, I guess Democrats here in this case, keep acting like I'm not telling you what my grievance is. And me and millions of people just like me. I don't know how much more clear I can be, and then the distractions that are going on. Like I'm on Red Note all the time. I'm like the only right winger there, and it's all the Chinese. It's like Mario, not Mario. Luigi's a hero.
The other Mario brother.
Exactly. And then just the amount of gun videos on Red Note of Chinese going out and shooting guns. It's just like, really? These are my people. And it's just like, there is so much overlap between just the common people, wherever it is that you are, like what you're talking about in Europe. It's the same thing here. I would have no problem at all. I would not be the dickhead on immigration that I am if the border has been closed by Reagan like he promised in the 80s, or it got promised by W in the 2000s. And it never, ever changes. And I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of inflation just completely screwing my life. I'm tired of not being able to get a job. I'm tired. I'm tired of getting screwed over. And the people in Europe are the exact same way. You know, I wish to God that Marco Rubio would look at me. Well, he's Secretary of State, but take this as you will. I wish that the U.S. Congress would look at me the same way they look at Israel. It's like, there's poor Israelis. I just feel so bad for them because they don't have enough 2,000-pound bombs. I feel so bad for them.
Have some sympathy for the people.
Yeah, I mean, no. How about the people like here in Columbia Falls? I mean, the town's dying because the aluminum plant got shut down. I mean, how about I don't know. How about you look at the American people the way that you look at you look at your pet foreign people?
Trump did put a 90-day pause on all foreign aid except to Israel and Egypt
and Ukraine.
But there is a pause.
And Ukraine's still getting it. But keep in mind,
I think he can't stop whatever Biden had already passed, but henceforth for the next 90 days, I think they're doing like a budgetary review on all of the other the ongoing aid. But whatever Biden had already passed, he signed into law. Congress already passed it, so he has no choice on that. But I
don't understand foreign aid at all. As long as America has a single homeless person, I do not understand foreign aid.
I don't know.
And this is Rubio's, this is Rubio's territory.
Well, and when I say this to my left-leaning friends, they're like, Ted. And I'm like, okay, that's not an answer to what I just said.
No.
Like, really.
I mean,
I'm okay with stopping all foreign aid. Let's just stop it 90 days, kick it down the road a little more, make it 180 days.
Yeah, make it permanent. I mean, I don't honestly, let's fix our problems here. I mean, there's no American citizen should be sleeping outside or poor or evicted as long as we're sending money overseas. I mean, I would rather give money to the biggest wastrel Hunter Biden like American who needs, like, let's say rehab in his case.
So like if Hunter was on the street,
to give it to fucking Israel to drop on.
So like
Gazans.
If Hunter was
or
on
for
the
that
street
matter, I don't want to give it to, let's say, people who are poor overseas, as long as we have poor people here. I don't get it. I mean, even though I feel bad that there are poor people overseas, but they're not my business.
That's their problem.
That's not. I don't live there.
But see, here's the thing, Ted. I mean, this is the overlap between MAGA and the real left, because I disagree with nothing that you just said. Absolutely nothing.
There's consensus there.
Oh, 100%. And
but
it's kind of like we were talking over the weekend. Like
I'm a Ron Paul worshiper, though. So that, I mean, he's been harping on this for 35 years.
See, here's the thing. Like, I don't call myself a conservative. I'm a right winger. And like we were kind of talking about over the weekend, it's just like, no, my position is burn everything to hell, everything. Just have a complete reboot. There's nothing about the current system that I want to conserve. I want to go back to a federal system, if that's even possible in a global environment. If not, you know what? If Ted is able to, with his political ideas, if he will let me have my guns, and if just federalize the whole abortion
it would be
issue,
stupid to try to take away people's guns, even if you wanted to. There's too many out there. It's stupid. Well, it's like it's part of American culture. It's there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But
I mean, what
are you going to do? Kick down everyone's door and take their guns? It just doesn't make any sense.
I agree.
I think guns are dangerous, and too many people shoot up schools and stuff. But there's not really much you can do about it at this point.
No, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that as y'all's as y'all's resident right-wing nut job, I'm willing to be a MAGA communist if there's even such a thing. If it means burning down the current system and having a full reboot and breaking the oligarchy.
Well, the funny thing is we're going to be examining that. We're going to be examining communism on Wednesday.
Yeah, we are. Now, communism is a goal, right? I mean, but what the left wants is a revolution. And that when a revolution happens, there's no telling what happens, right? Like what comes next. but it is the problem. You can end up like the French Revolution, and you end up with Napoleon and 100 years of bullshit. But the thing is, so a revolution is a desperate act, but you have the chance at a redo. And with a revolution, then all the people get together and they argue and they fight and about what comes next. So that's what a revolution is. I mean, we would get to figure that out. I mean, I don't think anyone would write our Constitution. Our Constitution would not look exactly the way it does now if it was being written today, right? I don't think there'd be an electoral college, for example. There's lots of stuff that wouldn't be in there.
Well, the Constitution that we have now, in my opinion, and what I'm about to say is going to piss off like every right-winger out there, needs to be replaced. It was designed for a different time, a much smaller nation with a much smaller population,
with a very small voting bloc. I mean, it was such a small country that, like, President Jefferson devoted several hours of his time every night to write back a letter to every single person who wrote to him.
Yeah.
What?
Well, it was only landed white guys who could vote, right? And there weren't that many of them.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make is what we have right now. Like I was talking to a Chinese guy yesterday on Red Note. He's just like, do you think that America is a republic? I said, no, it's an oligarchy, just like you are. And the reason why you have to have the Tom Cottons in the world who want to demonize Red Note, they want to do all this censorship, and it's because they want me to hate you.
Oh, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And so
on that note.
Oh, go ahead.
Before I forget, Robbie, we all know that the point that you're making about Tom Cotton, we know, but did you guys see that this weekend, another thing trying to fly under the radar, they're trying to establish, not only are they trying to say TikTok needs to go away because it's a national security threat. Now your wireless router, your TP-Link, because apparently TP-Link owns more than 50% of the router market, allegedly. And now people like Tom Cotton are saying we need to get those damn Chinese wireless routers out of your house because they're spying on you like Chinese spy balloons.
Blow me, Tom Cotton.
See, I would gladly give my data to the Chinese Communist Party. You know why? As opposed to Tom Cotton, you want to know why?
They already have it.
No, it's because the Chinese cannot hurt me, Ted.
Right, I'm not worried about the Chinese.
I have never been hurt. I have never been hurt by the Russians. Right. I have never been hurt by the Chinese. Yep. I've been hurt plenty by my so-called elected officials in Washington, D.C. And so that's the thing.
Sorely disappointed.
I mean,
I'm not. That's the thing, right? Like if you have contempt for your own government and fear of your own government, which I do, why on earth? I don't think I think like the Red Scare of the 1920s and all that, and the 50s, that worked because the American government was more popular with the voters then than it is now.
Well, I know that we're over time. We're about to have to pull a plug on this, but I've mentioned this before. When the Goths, when they went to Rome under Alaric the Great, the Roman citizens celebrated. They opened the gates when they let the barbarians in. Said, Finally, it's over. They would rather live under a German barbarian than under the Roman elite. That's how bad it got. That's the point where I am on right now. And the problem is, like to your point, Ted, whenever you have a revolution, and I think that's where we're headed, you either have a revolution where things turn out okay, like the American Revolution, or you get the French Revolution, which is a whole other thing. And what my biggest fear is, when this country falls apart, and it will, it's not going to be like the War of Northern Aggression where you have two armies tearing each other out in the field.
It won't.
It is going to be a complete implosion like the world's never seen. And
that's what I'm worried about.
That's what terrifies me.
Robbie, I'm worried about collapse more than I'm worried about revolution.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm more worried about like 1991 in the Soviet Union, and they ended up going into 10 years of chaos. People here have no idea how bad things were in Russia. Yeah. I mean, there at a certain point when I visited there in the late 90s, there was no one over 60. They'd all died of starvation. There was just the population fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
The birth rate fell off the cliff. Everyone was just drinking. There was chaos everywhere. Fucking armed thugs took over all the businesses. No one who was an entrepreneur could get anything done without being, at risk of being killed. It was bad. And it's like, you can't be at all surprised that the Russian people who have a memory of that kind of have a appetite for a strong hand at the helm now. Collapse is bad, and we could get, we could see that. I think Americans without an organized left, that is what will happen.
So now
because Americans do not believe that can happen.
Well, it's going to happen, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people in mainland China, why they support their government, is because the older Chinese, they have living memory. Like if you're in your 80s or your 90s, you remember the Chinese Civil War. You remember Mao. You remember all that chaos.
And it was 30 years. I mean,
you want stability. You want stability. And the American South, how you talked about, a lot of those monuments weren't built until the early 1900s. It's because the South was so decimated. I mean, there were people that they were eating their clothes because there was no food. I mean, the South was destroyed. And so it takes time, to recover. And it's just, I don't know. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that the United States is just going to disintegrate, and I don't want my kids to go.
It is a big, unwieldy empire, right? I mean, it's like it's a big fucking country, and it's very disparate. And I've said this before. I think I'm going to keep reiterating it, though. I'm going to write my column about it this week. I think it's what's really scary, actually, when you see the liberals, the Democrats following this election, and they've checked out. And they're not screaming. They don't have TDS anymore. They're not like, Trump did this.
They
Trump did
succumbed
that.
to their TDS.
So okay. I think Republicans think, oh, it's good because they're just shutting up. And now, that's terrifying because it means this is like a marriage. As long as the couple's still fighting, maybe the marriage can be saved. But when one or both of them is like, I ain't talking to you anymore, like at all, it's over. And that's where we're at. I mean, when I talk to my Democratic friends, they're all like, their take isn't about, very little of it is like, Trump, what an asshole, the way it was the first 4 years. Now it's like those fucking people in the middle of the country, fuck them. I'm not talking, this is their fault. I'm checked out. I'm not watching TV anymore. I'm not reading the paper. I don't care. I canceled my subscriptions. No more Rachel Maddow. And again, that might feel like victory for the right, but it's not. No. What this is it's a precursor to that alienation and contempt that leads to civil war.
So here's my question for you. So with your Democratic friends, is there any way that someone like me could even begin to talk to them and explain where this rage is from my side of the aisle comes from? Why we're willing to go out and support this orange man as a last gasp? It's like,
well, look, Robbie, I feel like you're getting better luck talking to people in mainland China that don't speak English.
Well, on Red Note. Well, that's my concern, right? I mean, how could someone from my side of the aisle, how can I make them see that I'm not a Nazi?
One-on-one, if we took you one-on-one over drinks and we knocked back a bunch of beers and
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola's in your case.
I'll coach you have the beer.
You could do this. The problem is the country's too big. It's like sort of everyone said that Hillary Clinton was great one-on-one, but there's 330 million people here, so that wasn't going to work. It's like that. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, so what I fear is that a lot of Democrats are no longer, if they ever were, I'm not sure they ever were, but they just don't want to hear it. They can't and won't hear it. Yes. I try to explain it to them. I try to serve as an interlocutor. I try to explain things, but it's just like, here, let me translate from English into English. But it just doesn't, I don't know. It's just like, they've also been propagandized, right? I mean,
yes.
They always think about like Fox News. That's propaganda too. But
sure.
But there's, so is the New York Times. So they're not seeing it though. I mean, it's a really complicated, but it's a big fucking problem because we all have to live in this country together. And, we're all in the same house, and it feels like maybe you don't have to, you can do, Michael Douglas, War of the Roses, you can put black tape in the middle of the house and just not handle, but that doesn't work.
We're going to need to find like a social anthropologist. I don't even know if that's a thing.
100%.
But some kind of anthropologist that has studied American culture to talk about this great divide and why.
And there's always been an urban,
what
rural,
happened with the cultural
coastal.
Shift. No, I agree.
There always has been, but it's worse now.
As the parties have flipped, and the Democrats are now this globalist, big business, whatever.
I'm telling you, deindustrialization is at the core of this. So, like, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. If it had been 100 years ago, I would still be living in Dayton, Ohio. I would have gotten a job at some awesome industry, probably National Cash Register. And I would be maybe in the executive training program, or I may be on the factory floor making cash registers, right? But the point is the economy was booming there. I'd be in a big city with a lot of culture, with a lot of theaters, there'd be no reason to leave. I would have just stayed there. But like everybody with half a brain had to like pack up and leave because there's no fucking work anymore, right? There's no population and there's nothing there. So the population all heads to the coasts, right? Especially the educated population. Right. So it used to, that's why Ohio is now a red state. It used to be a swing state. It's like, but we all lived together when there were these swing states in the middle of the country, like Ohio, like that was a time when, deindustrialization basically meant that like, there's no way for, red and blue America are not living in the same places anymore. Yeah. And they don't know each other.
Ted,
that's the problem.
Ted,
final thought, Robbie, we got to go.
Ted, you know how I got to Montana, right? Did I ever tell you that story?
Yeah.
I mean, there was no work. I could not make a living picking cotton because the wages were so deflated because of migrants. So here I am. I came here to go work at a call center because I had a brand new baby and I couldn't afford diapers.
That's my problem with the H-1B visas. That's like,
it sucks.
It's like, like if you're in high school and you love math, why would you think about becoming a computer programmer when you probably won't be able to get a job because it'll go.
Don't open the can of worms. Overseas. We got to go.
All right. Bye.
We gotta go
tomorrow.
Robbie was supposed to get the last word. No, Wednesday we're gonna talk about the whole communism thing, and I think it's worth mentioning the H-1B stuff when it on that show because a lot of people are I've heard people pose the whole idea of like, well, like if you look at communist countries, they don't have all of this immigration and blah 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 and whatever. But we'll save that for Wednesday. Producer Robbie, thank you. Dropping you out.
Bonsoir.
Okay, so this is the TMI Show, Ted Manila Information Show for short. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you are, the follow and the likes. It'll help this algorithm on whatever platform you're watching. If it's YouTube or it's Rumble, it helps the algorithm to recognize us, and it'll like organically help promote us. So if you are not in the financial position to do any donations or whatever, help us out that way just by hitting the like and the follow button. So that way you start getting us out there. And please share our stuff if you can. We would greatly appreciate it. Cut a clip, put something up there. Would love to see that. Thank you so much. I'm Manila Chan. That's Ted Rall. We'll be back tomorrow. Hasta mañana, everybody. Thank you for being here. I got a sick kid to tend to.
Oh my God.
Ted's going to wander off to the woods.
Wash your hands.
I know. I sound like a horrible mom, like saying this, but given my health issues, like the back half of 2024, I'm
all the way up to the elbows.
Oh, really? I'm
trying like a surgeon. That's how they do it.
And I'm gonna like put on a COVID mask. I still have a whole stack of those. So like the what's it
called? Wear them while you've got them.
The H-1B visa ones. Those.
The N95.
That's it.
The H1N1. Yeah.
I got those. So I'm going to put those on because I can't risk it. All right. Thanks, guys. Right. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.